There we go. And hello and welcome to a little progress, actually. I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson. And tonight, we've got a bit of an update. And this is one, this is always controversial in the movement because we got pro-lifers and pro-choicers in the movement. But this is about really ultimately taxes. So before we get into it, we got to do what we got to do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us, relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly, instead of relying on any social media platforms tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which is why you can further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. Now, our social media platforms is kind of an interesting phenomenon here. Everybody makes fun of, you paid for Twitter, you paid for Twitter. But I've supported Twitter since the Twitter files came out and exposed the collusion that the previous owner and administrator was engaging in with government agencies to censor speech on Twitter. And I felt that was kind of important because this is something that's actually a violation of the First Amendment for the government to pressure and collude with an organization to censor speech. It's not the same thing as a private organization just doing their thing when the FBI and the CIA and specific officials, government officials, are demanding censorship of specific people and specific political speech, and then the entity is doing it on their behalf. That is no longer the entity's freedom of speech. That is government censorship. So, I've caught a lot of flack for that, right? So an interesting thing happened this past week that kind of made it pay off in a way that was unexpected. I'm spending about $8 a month for this. It's not I know a lot of people who spend more than that a week on coffee, so it's not a big expense, right? But I got false reported by somebody that was butthurt about something I said or did, and I don't know who. It might have actually been the individual that I was talking to in the conversation. I got false reported, and the false report was really dumb, right? The individual had told the victim of a PDF file to self-delete, right? And so, of course, we're criticizing this individual as supporting that particular proclivity, that illegal proclivity.
By the way,
yeah,
it's not like we're not going to get monetized anyway.
Yeah, I know.
We're talking about Nazis and suicides. Fuck it, folks.
Well,
we
I was
don't have
trying
to
not to do that because
this
is not
rules.
a discussion about those things. So I figured if we didn't use those terms in a discussion that's not about those things, then we wouldn't be. Like, some people are actually getting their stuff deleted now for mentioning that again.
I think it's rather it's almost dare I say it, delightful way. Like it makes me a little bit happy when I can say PDF file instead of what it actually is, because
Yeah,
it's such a fucking horrific
thing.
thing,
Well, either
right?
way, the
So to
interesting
make a little, go ahead.
yeah, the interesting thing that happened was I didn't find out about this for a day because I wasn't on X for a day. Right. So when I came back on, it goes through that process. Oh, you've been locked for violating our policies on, and of course the person reported me for something to do with violence. What I had said was because the person denied being approving basically of pedophilia, and it was like you told a victim of a pedophile to commit suicide. Yeah, that's totally not sus, right? That was what got reported. And so, of course, I appealed, right? I appealed immediately, and I went into the help system to do it. I didn't just, because they have an immediate, like, appeal. You can click here to appeal. Like, screw that. Went into the help system to do it. And in the help system, you get to make more of an explanation. It's why you think that your thing that you've said doesn't fit the policy that they're using to make you delete it. So I gave my explanation. I pointed out, this is sarcasm used to criticize this individual for telling another person to commit suicide because he is a victim of a pedophile. It's clearly not advocacy for violence. It's clearly criticizing an individual who advocated or suggested another individual commit suicide. And I noticed when I got back, the comment that I was responding to had been deleted, and several other comments in the conversation where the individual had repeatedly told this person to commit suicide, they had all been deleted. So I'm assuming that individual had been reported and had just assumed that the people he was talking to were the ones that did it and had retaliated by reporting. And so that's how that,
You
but
know,
it's interesting. The interesting thing to me is, like, by the time I got done messaging people who usually ask, where are you? Why aren't you on Twitter? On Discord, it was resolved. And usually, like, it prior to this, when I was dealing with old Twitter, that took 3 days. Right? And I'm pretty sure it got resolved faster because I'm a premium user. So that was what I
I
wanted to point out.
I might have to start supporting X, formerly Twitter, even harder, as my options in alternative media begin to shrink due to recent UK rules.
yeah.
I'm allowed to say these things on Gab and BitChute, but both these companies have had to withdraw from the UK so that they don't have to disclose user data. And I don't know if that means I'll no longer be allowed to use BitChute or Gab, or if they're just moving their operations from those countries. Because BitChute, I think, was a UK company, a company based in the UK, and now they're going to have to move their operations overseas so that they don't get completely shut down, if only by excessive fines. But Gab's not a UK company; it's an American one. But they're still, they too are talking about having to withdraw from the UK, which I think means, but I'm not sure, I won't be able to use Gab or BitChute from the UK anymore, which would kind of suck.
Yeah.
Uh, but thank God we have things like X, formerly Twitter, and indeed Rumble, and YouTube. I don't know. I'm not going to thank any gods for YouTube because it's a fucking cesspit. But at least I'll still be able to use it. Shadow banned into oblivion as though I am. Ugh.
Yeah, social media has become quite different. And it's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens in upcoming, because I know Europe is trying to fine Musk a bunch of money and pressure him to bow to their their policies, their anti-speech policies and everything. And I don't know if he's going to pay the money or if he's going to do something else, but they are forgetting that this is a guy who, at the drop of a news story reporting that they didn't have access to internet in Ukraine, and it was causing the Ukrainian military to have problems communicating, and people of Ukraine have problems communicating. Like, he just set up a whole network there, and he did it with satellites. So if Europe decides that they don't want to allow free speech, and Musk decides that he wants to enforce free speech, he could do it. Like, he has the capability of putting up satellites. And the only thing they could do after those satellites are up is try to figure out a way to prevent people from accessing the signal. I don't even know if you can jam that.
But he's like an unelected official of the government. Oh my God! How can he do any of this? He's just he's the billionaire class. Meanwhile, when George Soros and his ilk were funding the Democrat side of the party, there was not a peep. You couldn't hear a mouse piss on cotton.
Yeah, I would love to hear the European elite bitch and whine about a guy like Musk providing the public a means of communication that the elite cannot stifle while enslaving them. Like, that's basically what that fine is, but it'll be even funnier if it's completely out of their control. Completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that would be super expensive, and the guy is rich, but that doesn't mean he has infinite money.
Right.
But it would still be hilarious to see him do that. And, like I said, he does have all of the tools he needs to do that. He can build them, he can launch them, he can maintain them. If something happens to one of them, he can send techs up to repair. Whether they're human techs or robot techs, he has both. It's like,
there's nothing two-tier Kier can do about it.
It's like the populist version of Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
He's like a Bond hero.
Yeah. Listen, and for as much as the world complains about how much Europe has colonized the world, I would fucking love to see someone do a little bit of a give back. Right?
Yeah, they probably would call it colonizing.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be hilarious. Exactly. You allowed the people to speak freely. How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but it would fall right in line, right?
Yeah.
Because they were not against us leaving their country and forming our own government and country as it were. They absolutely would have a problem with it, but what could they do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
And if if he did something like that, in my mind, that would make it even more worth it to support the platform. Honestly, like it would.
Yep.
That would, that actually might even merit going up to the next level because there's another level of premium above what I'm paying for. And there's actually a level of paid features below. There's some $3 thing that allows you some of what the premium features offer, but not all of them. But, like, I don't know. Or I'd start, like, advertising HBR Talk on X or something. It'd be worth it.
Yeah, I haven't even paid attention to it because honestly, social media was nothing more than just a vehicle for me to get my opinion across, and have arguments with idiots who I
Yeah.
thought were real people, but as time goes by and you really understand what it is you're dealing with, like we're in a fucking kerfuffle right now with someone, two accounts that obviously they're just fucking, no, I wouldn't call them bots, but they are just engagement farmers, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care to engage with them. I'm not gonna go meme for meme back and forth with you fucking assholes. As funny as it could be, but I don't have the time. I do not care. I've done that so many times before, and it's just it doesn't hold the entertainment value for me anymore, right? All it is just, oh my god, there's another notification. There's another fucking notification. That's
Oh
all it
hell.
is. That's
I've
all it
been
is.
enjoying it. I'll be honest, I've been enjoying it. But
I know you.
well,
I mean,
okay,
and
so
but you
I
know what
had
it
somebody
is?
point something out to me about it recently. So like this seems for me to be the female equivalent of getting into a bar fight,
Yeah,
as a dude. Except
yeah.
because I do live in the U.S., as long as I don't say, you know, this you should go commit this crime, or
Hmm.
actually you can even do that, and it's not illegal. It's if you plan a crime. Like
Yeah.
then it's a conspiracy to commit a crime, right? As long as they don't do something like that, um, then it's not illegal for me to get into Twitter slap fights with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
by the way, thank you very much to whoever it was who tagged me into that thread that became an epic meme fight on Twitter a couple of days ago.
Hey,
My
listen.
my notification was just chock a block with this fucking meme fight. Alright? It
wait,
was entertaining, but
which thread are we talking about? Was it? It
I
wasn't the
know it
one I
happens
was
to you
in.
all the time, Hannah.
I
But
don't know if it was the one I was in or whether it's another meme fight. Because now
yes,
I
I forget
mean,
who it was. It was Fat Chick Finder or
oh yes,
whoever it was.
yes,
that was the
yes,
one I was
yes.
in.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Listen, the only
You know they followed
reason that
me.
I haven't, of course, because these people are fucking. They are. Oh my
So
god, they are narcissists. But
this
the
person
only
thought
real.
calling me fat would upset me.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's stupid. They are only there for engagement farming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And but the only reason that I will not delete myself from this, I don't even know how the fuck. How do you do that? How do you get yourself out of one of these
There's a way. There's
endless
a way. Let me
fucking
see if.
loops? But
Well,
the
I'll
only
send
reason
you instructions. There's a
the
way.
the only the only reason that I haven't cared so much to do that is because sometimes you can get some really good fucking memes. And there was my one takeaway is it used to be called a jumpaline until your mom jumped on it. And now it's a
That was
trampoline.
awesome.
I fucking love that one.
Where do you find all these memes, Hannah? Do you just have a big ass folder on your
Um,
hard drive?
One folder. So like, I have a folder with folders in the folder, and also memes in the folder, and then memes in the folders in the folder, and some of those folders also have folders, and then my other devices also have folders. Folders with folders of folders. Like my GIF files are separate, so that yeah, I have a lot of memes. I just if I like it, I save it. I even have one for telling people I'm stealing their meme.
A whole folder?
Just not just a whole folder of that. No, just one meme for
Oh,
that.
I was
But
gonna say.
no, that's in my regular meme folder.
But how do you remember
Yeah.
all this shit? How can you just have this repository of meme information that you could just pull
it depends on
anything
how
out
something.
of? It?
I have this really weird memory. All right, so it depends on how something strikes me. Okay, if it hits and it hits just right, I remember it forever. Yeah, like even things like this thing that I want to reference is on. It's in this book. in this chapter on this page, and it's on this part of the page somewhere. Like, I can visually see it. And, if I want to go look again for it, I can go back to that book and open to that page. A lot of times I won't even remember the page number, just how far into the book physically I have to turn to get to the page, and what the text on the page, what shape the text on the page takes, like where the breaks are in the text for paragraphs and stuff. And based on that, I'll know when I'm on the right page, right?
Yeah,
But at the same
awesome
time,
shit.
if you asked me what I ate last night for supper when I was at work, I would have to think about it. I did eat. I know I did eat, right? I just don't. It's not important to me what I had,
Yeah.
right? On the other hand, there is a high chance that it's exactly the same thing I've eaten every night for the last month.
Yeah.
Because I'll get on a kick like that. That's and yeah, Richard's in the just the tism. And all that stuff, like I was like, yeah, those are my idiosyncrasies. No, I'm not autistic.
We were discussing chess in the chat. He might be referring to our discussion of chess in the chat.
Yeah, but that's a possibility as well. But it is funny because the more I learn about how it affects the way I think, the more I realize, like, it should have been obvious when I was younger, and could have gotten help in developing my social skills, right?
Yeah,
but it wasn't, I guess.
I just watched a video of someone was on YouTube, obviously, so I don't know how credible it is or whatever, but these behaviors they've always been around in children. We just didn't know how to classify them or even recognize that they were, idiosyncrasies within how children behave, So if you have one child who is laser focused on how to set up the teacups if you're playing tea, and getting mad at your sister who wants to actually go and play tea, but your one sister is just laser focused on setting up everything and making sure everything is perfect. Those are signs of autism, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you're hyper focused.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's quite an interesting experience learning about this stuff. But in any case,
in a world where narcissism is completely normalized, anything that isn't narcissism will be called autism.
Yeah,
they'll be misdiagnosed as autism.
There's that.
Yes.
Right. And I have been learning more about recovering from being victimized by a narcissist too, because that's a whole other story for a whole other time. I've talked about it a couple of times actually, but in any case, there's quite a bit about being autistic that can make you vulnerable to the turning everyone against you socially aspect of narcissistic abuse. And so that kind of, if you are working with someone, if you're autistic and you're working with someone who's a narcissist, you're in danger. If you live with someone who's a narcissist, you're in even more danger. But work is a possibility for danger.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to correct you. I don't want to be that type of person, but not in danger, but susceptible.
Oh no, you're in danger.
Right? Because
like I was physically injured.
Oh.
Yeah, well, narcissists do weird things. Like mine, like I own this narcissist. This is my narcissist. It was created for me. But no, my narcissist put, because she found out that my combination of poor eyesight and inability to get glasses at the time new glasses at the time, made it so that if you had a knife blade pointing at me, I couldn't see the blade. I couldn't distinguish where it was and where it ended and stuff. So she started putting knives in the dishwasher I had to empty with the blade up. And
Wow.
I missed one, and I grabbed a handful of silverware to pick up and sort out and put away, and sliced off a chunk of the end of the middle finger on my left hand.
Jesus.
Yeah, there's a numb spot there. That's actually about the size of a sweet pea. There's a scar there about the size, because I don't like going to the hospital, and I didn't want to take the time off work. So I got out
Well,
my
Jesus, Hannah,
big ass first aid kit, and I got out
with your history, I can't imagine why you wouldn't like going to the hospital.
Yeah.
I've burned my feet on coals, and I'm allergic to every living thing around me.
Yeah, I've been there a few times. But yeah, no, I just got out my big ass personal first aid kit that I carry everywhere because I am a klutz, and I got out my bleed stop, and I used that, and I stuck the piece back on the end of my finger and bandaged the hell out of it and went back to work.
You can't even come to my house because I don't even have Band-Aids. So
it's okay. I bring my own. Seriously?
Of course you do.
My first aid kit has butterfly sutures in it.
Well, you'll have to teach me how to use those, because I don't want to be in a position where I cannot administer first aid to myself.
They make some really neat ones, actually. You can get them. They're not cheap, but you can get them on Amazon, where it has the whole thing is all in one unit. It's got the plastic tape and everything all attached, and it's got a couple of strings. And you put it on, and then you pull the strings, and it tightens it. So it works the same as like the butterfly suture, butterfly. It's not a stitch. It's a Band-Aid, basically. But it sticks things together. Wait, this is on.
I mean, doesn't crazy glue work?
Somebody has said, yeah. I'm gonna.
That's what super glue was designed for in the army originally.
Yeah.
But I don't even need super glue.
Like
when I cut myself, I suck on the wound until it gels, because I'm a man. And I've never lost a limb. I've never even lost a finger. I've never even passed out during the operation.
Well, that's because you barely leave your house. So...
Well, it's because I'm careful enough not to fucking cut myself.
Yeah, Chat said this is going out on things that I can't even see in Restream. So I'm going to check something here. I don't see that. Okay. No, it's not. This doesn't make any sense. That's X.
Hello.
Sorry, guys. This is a little bit more technical difficulties, but it's not doing... All right, if it's going out on other... somebody in Direhawk just told... Or somebody from Direhawk just told me it's going out on... but it's not showing in Restream that it's going out on those things, so I don't understand what's happening here. I hate Restream. Just for the record. But all right. So anyway, we'll get away from the medical talk and everything. But yeah, those are actually really neat. You what?
Have you even still done what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, we haven't started that yet. No, we got to talking about social media because
it's
of the
art of conversation, people.
Yeah.
It's what we're here for.
We've lost that, and I so love it, and I'm so glad that you all are here with us to enjoy.
Well,
it's called HBR Talk, not HBR Article.
There we go.
Yes.
But the ultimate point that I was making with the social media thing is, there's actually value that I'm getting for paying for Twitter that I wasn't expecting, for paying for X that I wasn't expecting. Like, it's nice to be able to get immediate evaluation of an allegation when you're accused of violating the terms of the platform, instead of having to wait. And a person looks at it, and then they do something to try to fix it. And so I was restored within minutes. And yeah, that was valuable because of that meme fight. But in any case, and yeah, if you're in a workplace with a narcissist, definitely watch your back and your fingers. And every so often you'll see me post a link on X, by the way, from a channel that talks about recovering from narcissistic abuse. The guy that runs that channel, I can't think of his name for some dumb reason right now, but he was a victim himself, and he is a trained therapist who assists other people in recovering from narcissistic abuse. So I've been watching a lot of his stuff just because that experience really threw me, and it does help to get some confirmation that the behavior that you are subjected to is not normal.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if that would include people who would assume themselves of being narcissistic in the first place, right? Like, or is it that type of thing where I might think I'm a narcissist, so I might need to go and get help, or is it strictly people who have identified this authority figure in their life as a narcissist, and I need help in.
Narcissists,
if
I
someone
think,
thinks of
typically
themselves, if someone is
they're unable to diagnose themselves with narcissism, right? They think everyone
it
else
depends. I mean,
is a narcissist.
If somebody is worried that they might be a narcissist and they watch that channel, there are things he will describe that are behaviors that are common to narcissism, that they're really out there behaviors. Like, the Amber Heard shitting the bed incident?
Yeah,
that's a narcissistic behavior. Believe it or not, that's a narcissistic behavior. It was actually covered in the last video of his that I shared on X. I'm pretty sure I shared that on X.
The Indian fella.
Yes.
Yeah, he also talked about stuffing their faces with food and imagining people dying. Yeah.
And it's just like, if I ever had any doubts and thought that might be me, that video was like, I was horrified the whole time I was listening, because like to think of somebody's mind working that way was actually upsetting.
Wow, I
like,
missed that
cannot
one.
imagine being trapped in that thought pattern, and being, it makes it actually scarier to think of being in the room with someone who is in that thought pattern. It's really creepy. Narcissists are creepy. But in any case, yeah, that guy, I like his channel. And then if you're at the other end of it, if you're suspecting yourself to potentially be autistic, Autism from the Inside is a pretty good channel. And it's one of those where I kept, even when my doctor and I started talking about it, and even after I found out that I have 4 genetic markers for autism, not 1, but 4, I was still like, well, maybe, maybe not. Like, I'm this old and haven't been diagnosed yet. Wouldn't somebody have figured it out sooner? And the more I hear, the more I realize, like, that's not a determining factor. It's really not. But those are a couple of good channels, and I don't think I've shared a lot from Autism from the Inside, but I probably should. In any case, into more show-specific material, we do have our first Super Chow of the evening, and that's from Meredith G., who gave us $5 and said HBR Talk 351, Honey for the Badgers. And I'm going to introduce the article with a caveat here. And this isn't exactly ANCAP specific either. But if you're an ANCAP, you're going to sympathize with his point of view, right? Because you sympathize with the idea that taxation is theft anyway. But if we're going to tolerate taxes at all, income taxes and such, men who can't even afford to pay the copay to get a prostate exam shouldn't be getting taxed to pay for similar things for women
elsewhere,
right? Even and just while men don't get these things covered for them by the government, and they're forced to legally forced to buy insurance, and then they can't afford even the copays, so then they can't get their regular testing. They can't get there's not any kind of medical birth control available to them yet, except getting a vasectomy, which isn't necessarily healthy, and it's not necessarily reversible. And in most cases, it's not reversible. But they're being taxed to pay for women's abortions. That's insult and injury. And then on top of insult and injury, it's women in foreign countries. So they're not even it's not even benefiting women in their community and their family, their country. No, it's women halfway around the world that they don't know and will never meet. And whether it's really a benefit or not to be able to have an abortion is obviously debatable, and I don't think it is. But even if abortion was the gold standard of medical treatment and all women should have access to it and it's the greatest thing on earth and blah, 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 even if it was the best thing we could do for women and children everywhere, which I obviously don't agree with, but even if that was true, you shouldn't be forced to pay for women in France or Zimbabwe or Australia or Brazil to have it done.
In countries that most of Americans will never, ever even be able to visit. Right? Because of the way we are taxed, we cannot afford to even visit these places. Right? And I mean, it's just disgusting that this is where our money is going to. I have a real problem with the fact that, forget about fucking funding abortions. Where, when, who is going to start funding the fucking education of how to prevent pregnancy? This just seems so stupid on the face of it. Preventing pregnancy, right? It's just, you don't fuck, number one. That's kind of how you do it. Mm-hmm. Or you use the litany of birth control options that are available. What? Let's do that. You know what I mean? Like, why is it that abortion is the thing that we are spending our money to? It's because we have provided. It's like the grocery store, right? Like when you give people too many options, they just can't make up their mind, right? So they go home with probably the worst fucking option available to them.
Yeah. Or they spend a shitload of money on something that they could get cheaper.
Right. When instead what we need to be doing is teaching these people what actually is on these grocery aisles. And in the grocery aisles, I mean, in the pharmacist aisle of pharmaceutical of
like there's a whole section for women's stuff, women's health.
Yes.
And it includes everything from the birth control items to, like pills you take for urinary health and everything. All of the, the stuff to deal with that not so fresh feeling from the commercials, which isn't healthy, but
I don't know how old I am, but I was like maybe year old when I fucking walked through CVS and found vibrators in
Yep, yep,
CVS.
yep, yep.
Like,
They have them in
how do
the
you
women's
have,
health section.
yes, how do you have products for sexual stimulation, yet you cannot provide more than, I couldn't tell you, I mean, condoms. That's what you got, condoms. And if you knock on the window, you can probably get some Plan B.
Oh yeah, at various pharmacies actually. In fact, when I worked at a pharmacy, you know, they had everything from condoms and spermicidal lube, spermicidal film, and all that. The
Mm-hmm.
sponges, all the way up to morning after pills on the shelf. You didn't have to go behind the counter to get it.
Yeah,
You just had to get it
yeah,
unlocked because
yeah.
that's one of the things that the shoplifting gangs target. And
And they do that. They do that to like remove the stigma of having to ask for these
mhm.
things. Like, oh my God, how could you get?
They
But
remove
they
the
don't
stigma
use them
of having to
anyway.
ask for
Right,
the medication, but then you have to ask to get it
right,
unlocked. It's
right.
kind of funny.
But they don't use it anyway. They don't fucking use it anyway. So what really is the point of all of this? It's just a fucking song and dance. Just to be able to say, oh, well, oh my God, oops, something happened. And
Yeah.
oh, I got pregnant. And oh no, it's, it's my, it's, I need a medical intervention for my body. It's my body. And oh my God, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, there's another body inside of my body, and it's my right to not have to deal with this other body inside of my body. But it's not a body. It's just whatever we can use, whatever terminology we can use to psychologically detach
Can we call it a
yourself
two-body
from.
problem?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yes. Thank you.
Oh
Thank
my god.
you. Thank you.
uh
But yeah, it's like any term they can use to psychologically detach themselves from what is actually happening inside of their own body.
yeah.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's like I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it's
love.
compartmentalizing, right? So you don't think
Yes.
of it as meeting the criteria that it meets. You
Right.
learn in health class in the United States when you are growing up. You learn that uh, the criteria for life includes a very specific set of characteristics, and then you learn about the gestational development of a human organism, and lo and behold, from conception, from implantation, that life meets all of those criteria,
Mm-hmm.
every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we have this compartmentalization of, well, it's not alive. And you also learn
Right.
that the human species is classified based on having specifically human chromosomes. And you
Now
also learn that after conception, the blastocyst, which is the early stage before it becomes a zygote and a embryo or fetus and embryo and all that, it's got human chromosomes. It's got the
mm-hmm.
correct number of human chromosomes. And
Right.
so it is classified as the species human. But you can
Yeah.
compartmentalize and say, well, morally, it's not a human life. Okay, where do
Right.
you get that? Well, the law says it's not a human life. Well, once upon a time, the law said black people only counted as 3/5 of a person,
Mm-hmm.
right? The law is
Mm-hmm.
not always right. When it's wrong, we change
Right.
it.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, but these people can't think past their own fucking genitals, right? So, you know, and I'm sure there are a gaggle of these abortion addicts, and that's what I'm going to call them. They're addicted to abortion addicts
Yep.
who also own animals. They are guardians of cats and dogs. And well, what would you say if your cat got pregnant? And she's looking at me right now. I can't even.
It's like, don't you be putting that on me, girl. I don't want it.
Right, but
Guarantee she's not
how
thrilled.
how how would they feel if their unspayed cat got out and just stop looking at me like that, cat? You're not getting out. They got out and and happened to come home pregnant. You know, it would be oh my gosh, this the miracle of life is happening within my very fucking field of vision.
Nah, but they start looking for people to give those kittens to right away.
Well, I mean, yes,
But
you
yeah.
know, obviously that happens. But however, it doesn't stop them from awing at the miracle of life that is happening and just completely being callous to what happens inside of a woman's body when she becomes pregnant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we classify stuff that is not even, you know, it's not even a full single-celled organism as being alive, but we don't want to classify. Yeah.
Other, right?
Yeah, and other. So, yeah. So we have this weird mentality, and people will get butthurt over what I'm about to read. But I want to remind people that the underlying point here is Americans are being taxed to pay for this. And it doesn't matter. Like, nobody needs to go. We don't need to go to Europe and say, you have to pass laws against abortion, or we don't need to go to South America and say, you have to close all your abortion clinics. We don't have to go to Africa and start preaching the gospel, you know, or telling them that abortion is morally wrong or anything. But it's not your responsibility to pay anyone to perform the procedure in those countries. It's not your responsibility to provide it to them as a taxpayer. Yeah. And like that's mainly my point here. Personally, if I had some sort of omnipotent power and could just travel the world and spread messages and everything, sure, I'd go argue with those points with those people. This is a dumb idea. You shouldn't be doing it, and here's why. But that would be on me, and I would just as quickly say you shouldn't be taxed to pay for that either, right? But what we are talking about you being taxed to pay for, this is ending. Republicans are pushing to defund nonprofits that use foreign aid to illegally promote abortion. We actually have legislation that limits what these nonprofits are allowed to promote in foreign countries. So, an hour into this show here, we're gonna actually start reading the article. We may not read all of it. It's the main thing is that point, but it is relevant.
Did you tell everybody that they should go to Badger Seed if they want to support us directly instead of?
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
We are not a non-profit organization, by the way.
No.
We make money from this so as to make a living, just like any other quote-unquote non-profit organization, but except we don't make millions of dollars from the taxpayers. That's important to point out that difference.
Well, I wouldn't be able to live on what I make from this, but I do make something.
And we don't fucking lie to you. We tell you the God's honest, awful truth, no matter if you like it or not. You
Yeah.
know, and if you value what it is we have to say, if you would like to become a part of the conversation, you are very much welcome. Just go to the aforementioned websites.
Yeah.
Hannah has a script for this. Brian has a script for this. Unfortunately,
And we have talked about it. Yeah.
we just have to make it up as we go along. Yeah,
Yes.
don't forget to like and subscribe and share, because sharing is caring. I think something
Do
like
all that.
Yeah.
And,
And
don't
do
listen
dastardly
to
things to the like button.
don't listen to what Doc says. It all matters. It all helps. And please tell your friends.
Well, actually, the most important thing you can do, if you're not able to help with funding, is to share on social media, because
Yes,
we are
the
throttled.
easiest way. Yes, yes,
But
we are.
we did get a super chat, Dr. Filippo. Di Filippo, Dr. Di Filippo, Dan Di Filippo. God, the dyslexia is bad today. Where did the because the comment above it has the word doctor in it. Good grief. Yeah.
that was my bad. Sorry.
It's not your fault. It's
It's
sometimes
his fault. It's his fault. I blame.
The worst I've had was I've actually pulled a word from the middle of a paragraph into the paragraph below it and read it into that paragraph and been very confused until I figured out where it came from. But Dan
Everyone is
DiFilippo,
dyslexic to some degree or other.
yeah, this isn't normal.
Just suck Lex dick and
There we
you'll
go.
be fine.
That's right. I'm not dyslexic. You are. Relatedly, he gave us $5 USD and said, relatedly, women are never more concerned about the federal budget than when you suggest $250 mandatory paternity tests could be provided by government. Yeah, those tests are useful, but recently I've seen 2 news stories where a test positively ID'd the wrong man as the father of the baby. And one of them was the test. The other one was a woman was able to get child support by faking that and convincing her husband that he was the father, or her boyfriend that he was the father when he wasn't. But I would say any man who is concerned about his paternity should get more than one test and get them done at different labs now, after knowing that.
Yeah.
Because that fucked me up a little bit. I was like, even a paternity test doesn't prove anymore the facts.
Right. And, go ahead.
Go on. Well, if women can get men to pay for 18 years of child support, I think $250 of that money can maybe go towards a paternity test.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, go on. What were you going to say?
You would think so, and so I've heard, and I've often been on the very side of the idea of DNA testing at birth, right? Because it just removes all doubt, and I still
it doesn't.
Right.
That's the thing. Now
exactly.
it doesn't.
Now it doesn't, but there is the other thing to think about, which is, well, then because these people, once you give them your DNA, anyone who's done DNA testing, right, just to see what their bloodline is, they tell you in the paperwork that you sign that they now own your DNA, right? Like they own it. They own that which you give them. So it's got to be rewritten, just like we need a fucking law. We need a set of laws for the internet, right? Like it's long overdue.
Yeah.
And
well,
here's
how that works, right? We had a set of laws created under the guise of protecting people's intellectual property, right? And a set of laws created under the guise of preventing monopolistic actions, and a set of laws created under the guise of preventing the use of vexatious litigation to harass business entities and private entities over this business disputes and stuff like that. And that combination of laws now gets used to allow big corporate monopolies to steal the intellectual property of individual citizens and then use vexatious litigation to prevent them from getting it back or getting any money for it. Like, when you rely on government to make the determination of these things and to be your protector in regard to these things, what you end up doing is empowering whoever can pay politicians the most money and whoever can get big enough to afford the most lawyers and the most powerful lawyers and manipulate the court system the most. You allow them to crush the little guy, pretty much.
Yeah.
So the better thing, actually, is for the internet to be a wild frontier. And for, like, obviously, if, there's already laws against things like raping, killing, pillaging, and burning. Right? You can't steal from people. You can't break into somebody's house and kill them without repercussions. You get caught. Those things are already real. And we already have means of handling defamation. We already have means of handling if somebody harasses you using the police and so on. We already have means of handling that. So we don't really need new laws. We just need proper enforcement of existing law.
Right.
If somebody shows up on your doorstep, you should be able to call the police, and they enforce the law. They arrest that person, you file trespassing charges, and it's done and over with. But instead, we have all these people, oh, you shouldn't be able to say this or do this or sell this or whatever on the internet. As long as it's not illegal to sell it on a street corner or in a store or in your house, it shouldn't be illegal to sell it on the internet either. And if it already is illegal, then the fact that it took place on the internet shouldn't change anything. And that's all that's needed right there. And with regard to DNA testing and everything, intellectual property laws existing already are the problem. You can't copyright something if copyright doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't steal somebody's health information if you don't have the government to back you in denying them a right to copy it and keep their own copy. So honestly, I think that less law rather than more law is needed here. And the only thing that really should exist in this area is the DNA sequencing I had done was not through 23andMe and stuff like that. It was through a company called Sequencing, which you can get 23andMe family stuff through them. I didn't go and do that. I went the healthcare end of it, and they have to abide by HIPAA laws. So if, for instance, somebody is looking for their ancestry, my results don't come up on their search. So I'm not going to have some stranger approach me and be like, hey, I'm your second cousin twice removed from the such and such, because they won't get my information. And I wanted that privacy because that's my information. It doesn't belong to everybody else. I'm fine with the fact that genealogy is public. Like, you can get on Ancestry.com and look up family members and stuff like that, and that's all, birth certificates and all that. That's, people can find that, but they won't randomly run across me in it. And at the same time, if the cops decide to send some DNA they picked up, some random DNA they picked up, and to 23andMe, and get a result and use that to find suspects, they're not going to, because I had a medical DNA test,
Yeah.
go through my whole family and look for people in my family that might have some connection to the individual who left that DNA. And
Yeah.
that was a worry for me, because we've done reports on stories where people have been wrongly accused because their DNA was this much or that much of a match. And it turns out that not only did they not commit the crime, but the person who did wasn't even part of their immediate family.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are exceptions to the rule of knowing your parentage, right? Like, if for medical reasons, obviously, if there are, you know, if you have a family history of a certain medical disease, then I believe that the child should know that, right? Like, because
Right.
otherwise the doctors are going to be just sitting there like, well, I don't know what's wrong with you. Do you have a history? And all the child can say is, I don't know. They may not even know that they were a product of a a donation, right? Like a sperm donation.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's a
and
good
the
example for you, even if you don't have a known family history of something. I had the way the insurance companies handle diagnoses like Ehlers-Danlos, for instance. I went in, I talked to my doctor about a certain set of health considerations I was having, and he started looking at Ehlers-Danlos after ruling out a bunch of other things, like a shitload of other things. And so then I go to this genetic counselor, and I have to go to the genetic counselor because my insurance company will not pay for genetic testing unless the genetic counselor agrees that I need tested for that one specific disorder.
Mhm.
And so I go in and I talk to him, and nobody in my family has this diagnosis. But you can go back through one side of my family, and there's a direct line of people with the same symptoms, right? And all of them would have met what's called the Beighton score criteria, for being tested and
Mhm.
being potentially diagnosed. Every single one of them. Um, and at least one individual from our fans as well. But in any case, and it's a disorder that usually hits people that are tall, but there's a short person in my family, like really short, who had the symptoms. So it's not unique to tall people, and it's not unique to people of certain ethnic backgrounds and stuff like that, and so on. It's it's actually peppered a lot more broadly in the population than people think. And the diagnosis is actually increasing because people are actually able to get their DNA tested for it now. But in any case, this guy did he got his bedside manner sucked, and he immediately didn't like me, and it was immediately obvious enough that even I could tell. And so he had this
Mhm.
sort of stiff mannerism toward me, and then denied me the test, which is why I went to this other company, which was interesting because I basically paid, somewhat more than what my copay would have been for the testing had I gone through the medical system that my insurance paid for.
Mhm.
And I got a shit ton more information than I would have gotten if I'd have gone that way. But yeah, you have to go through this whole weird process. The insurance company won't pay for the test if you don't get approval from this specialist, who is basically just a nurse who has some information on how to determine this stuff. And Yeah, he's just a nurse with extra training, not a doctor or anything like that. And that can keep you from getting your testing done too.
There's so much broken with our society, not and healthcare is one of the major ones,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So,
Mm,
and in the meantime, right? Um, I'm one of few women who may have paid more into the tax system than I got back.
yeah.
You know, because I've been the breadwinner in our family for many years because of the government taking most of my husband's money and giving it away, right?
Mm,
So income he earned wasn't going into our household for quite a long time. And even now, I get more opportunity for overtime than he does, for paid overtime anyway, than he does. And so I'm still making it. Plus, you know, I do get the Honey Badger radio income, although I'm kind of spending more than I'm making. So when you add up everything that it costs me to make sure I'm able to do this, but you know, on paper, like I'm paying the bulk of our taxes, and so I'm paying for this shit that we're reading about in this article, and I couldn't even get my medical care covered, and I couldn't pay for my so I had to save up to get this DNA test. So that's the reason that I did this, that I got that DNA test done, was literally because my avenues, you know, why would am I having to pay for something, pay to be told that I can't get medical care, basically, pay to be denied access to medical care.
mm,
Right?
mm-hmm.
That mandate is bullshit. And if that mandate didn't exist, you know, maybe I wouldn't have medical insurance. But at the other end of it, you know, maybe I'd have been able to put more money into medical savings, which has worked out way better for me because there isn't an entity that I have to go through that says, well, you personally don't need this health care and therefore we're not going to pay for it. And I've had that a bunch of times. My family history includes colon cancer, and I've almost aged out of the danger zone for women in my family, which is a weird thing to say at 50, 52. um,
I
but
mean, you should have been dead 30 years ago, right?
right, but
So nothing even matters anymore. You're a
yeah,
fucking goddess, Hannah.
technically,
Yeah.
yeah, technically I'm immortal so far, right? So far. But in my family, the youngest person that I knew personally that had it died when she was 28. And that's what happens to the women. Like the men don't get hit with it till they're over 50. The women
Mm.
usually get hit with it before they're 50. And my grandma on my dad's side passed away at 49. So I'm older than she ever got to be. And so I went in to talk to my doctor about it when I was in my 20s, and you know, like, oh well, we're gonna get some baseline information here, and they start, you know, we're gonna do this test, and we're gonna, you know, blah blah. The insurance company's like, no, she's too young. So you know, we did this whole thing, sent them all the history, sent them, you know, like my cousin had just passed away from this at 28, and you know, my doctor wrote this whole thing up of this is the risk in this family. Oh no, she's too young. We don't approve. We won't pay. You can't get this done. And you know, I'm like, what do you mean I can't get this done? Well, I could self-pay, right? Yeah, you can self-pay, but it's this much money. Well, if I didn't have insurance taking money out of my pay and I was putting that money into a medical savings account, I would have it. And I could do that. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have the thousands of dollars it was going to take. So I didn't get the testing. I didn't get the information. I didn't get to find out until I was over 35 that I'm not at risk. So I had a good almost 10 years of being paranoid about it.
Mm.
Lot of stress because that was it's a really awful thing to have happen to you. Honestly, I don't even want to describe it. But yeah. So we have this situation. Men face this quite a bit, right? Where they go and do get medical treatment, and they get treated like they're drug seeking, or they're whining, or well, you don't need time off for this, or we don't have to take this too seriously, right?
Mm-hmm. I can deal with it. Why can't you?
Yeah, or in the meantime, they're responsible for their family financially. Many men are in a position of not only are they forced to have insurance through their employer, so there's a big chunk being taken out of their check for that, but they're also forced to pay pay separately for insurance for their ex, or their ex and their children, or just their children. And then on top of that, they're paying child support. And some judges are making men pay other expenses. Oh, well, she needs a babysitter, so you got to pay for that too. She needs this, you got to pay for that too. The child is in 16 stupid little activities that the mother thinks will make the child a more well-rounded adult. And so you have to pay for the child's underwater basket weaving lessons, and ballet for toddlers and shit like that. That toddlers that are never going to pursue dance after they get out of elementary school. And so these guys are strapped. And then the doctor says, well, it's about time you get a baseline in your testing for this disorder or that event that happens in men's lives on a regular basis, like colon cancer testing, or prostate exams, or any little thing that gets monitored. Oh, you have a family history of heart health problems. We should double check and make sure that you don't have this specific type of arrhythmia that your father has, or things like that. And they can't afford it. It's going to cost this much copay. Oh, well, I don't have that money, right? Well, we can't do the testing until you pay. It's pay the day you get the testing done. And they're paying taxes to pay for abortions in foreign countries. So, according to the article, Republican lawmakers are moving to prevent U.S. foreign aid dollars from unlawfully promoting abortion abroad after the Biden administration used critical HIV and AIDS relief money to do so.
They love that fucking word, unlawfully. No,
Yep. That's illegally.
They will wedge that shit in there anywhere they can, no matter whether it fits or is even accurate. It's just like, yeah, I don't like it. It's unlawful.
Yep. Unlawful is it almost feels like a weasel word. They are breaking the law. It's unlawful. It's illegal. It's violation.
Yeah.
Right. And so what do we have going on here? We're supporting initiatives to reduce HIV and AIDS worldwide. So that, it came to the United States via travelers from foreign countries. There's actually a reason why we want to reduce it worldwide. Reducing it worldwide will reduce it here. And it'll reduce the chances of it coming back once it gets down to, a point where it's rare or eliminated. They're taking money away from that and using it for abortion, which does absolutely nothing to reduce transmission, right? Maybe a child won't be born with it, but the adult that infected the child with it, the fetus with it, still has it and is still having sex. So Senator Mike Lee from Utah and Representative Warren Davidson from Ohio, both Republicans, are introducing legislation in each chamber, the Aid Accountability Act of 2025, to create harsh penalties for NGOs and federal employees who violate the Helms Amendment, a 1973 law banning foreign assistance money from going towards abortion, the National Review has learned. So this will basically prevent you from being taxed to pay for abortion, regardless of what the NGO's platform is. They can say anything from, we go into foreign countries and help with family planning, which is an umbrella abortion would fall under, to we go into foreign countries and help with crime prevention, which is an umbrella that you'd have to stretch pretty big to get abortion under it. And they still are not allowed to use your money to abort children in other countries.
Mm-mm.
It is illegal and immoral for the U.S. government to fund abortion abroad. Federal funding for groups that promote abortion damages our credibility and hurts our ability to work with nations that share pro-life values, Davidson said in a statement to National Review. And an interesting thing, historically, nations that are predominantly Catholic, for instance, don't get along with the idea of having abortion paid for in their countries. Now, historically, nations that are predominantly Catholic don't like us sending them birth control pills either, or condoms or anything like that. And I guess the messaging is changing in the Catholic Church now, and it's going through a evolution in regard to that stuff. But that may not be permanent. The members of the Catholic Church may decide that they're not going to support that worldwide, and there are other religious groups that don't really support the idea of abortion. That religion may dominate some countries. There are also other reasons why even a nation that it doesn't necessarily have a moral imperative to avoid abortion may not like it being promoted in their country. And one of the things that we talked about in a couple of episodes was just how much foreign aid organizations in the United States were targeting Africa with prevention of reproduction and sterilization of men, in fact, and not just abortion. So we're looking at what is actually being done there. Is it not just a prevention of poverty growth, but a prevention of population growth for other reasons?
Yeah.
So there's some very serious questions that need to be answered before we even consider approving of promoting these types of things in foreign nations. But the Aid Accountability Act ensures real consequences for those who ignore the Helms Amendment by permanently banning nonprofits caught using federal funds for abortion. So they use those funds to promote abortion. They can never get federal funding again. Further, it would ban federal workers from civil service who knowingly violate the law. So if you violate the law, you go into a foreign country and you promote this as part of your service in another country, you're fired, and you cannot get another job in government. It's basically you're out of the industry because government is an industry. So only by restoring a accountability, it says, to foreign aid, can we hope to restore trust in the State Department? So this last bit here, can we help to restore trust in the State Department? In my opinion, we shouldn't have trust in the State Department. We should be watching it just like every other bit of the federal bureaucracy, like a hawk that is just as hungry as can possibly be and is looking for mice in the agency or slightly larger animals. But, it's still fair for them to say, certainly we can't restore trust without doing this. Davidson, a hardline member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, is hoping to increase accountability to foreign aid programs after the State Department recently admitted to using PEPFAR funds. We did talk a little bit about PEPFAR to promote abortion. PEPFAR is the U.S. global health care plan to combat HIV and AIDS worldwide, and is considered one of the most successful governmental programs in recent American history. For years, American tax dollars have gone to foreign aid efforts that promote abortion in direct violation of the Helms Amendment, Lee said in a statement. This is largely because there have been no real penalties for this grievous abuse until now. Our legislation permanently cuts aid off from any organizations which violate abortion prohibition and permanently fires any federal employee who knowingly facilitates it. So that confirms what I said. They're fired, they're out, and they can't come back. So this part just repeats what we read before, but they do have a list, and this is mostly on one side of the political aisle here. Chris Smith, New Jersey Republican representative, is the one who obtained the list, the extensive list of the left-wing nonprofits that partnered with PEPFAR that actively promote abortion. Shows that $1.3 billion went to the collection of over 24 organizations in fiscal years 2021 and 2022 combined. And so they had that much funding that we don't know how much of it was dedicated to abortion. Then, let's see. Of course, the alarm was raised by pro-life organizations. Here we have confirmation of the earlier statement about this actually affects our foreign relations. African lawmakers and religious leaders have criticized the U.S. for attempting to weaponize PEPFAR funding to advance pro-abortion agenda on foreign countries with different sets of values. This is something that I had been kind of unaware of until social media spread around the world. And when I started getting more and more connections in Africa and listening to what they had to say, abortion is really kind of a foreign idea to them. This isn't something that, the African women were just clamoring for the right to kill their babies before they were born, and American heroes came in and saved the day. Like, we're not Mighty Mouse. In fact, this was a horror that has been visited upon communities that are often deeply religious, not necessarily always Christian, but some of them are. Some of them are Muslim. Some of them are older to the area religions that didn't come in and evangelize them to one or another of the Abrahamic religions that are starting to dominate the continent now. And in even their older cultures, abortion wasn't something that they would have said, hey, yeah, we desperately want to be able to do this. We just need you to come in here and provide us with the means. Instead, it's the kind of thing that you're like, it's just like the, what Thomas Paine wrote. I can't think of what it was called. Modest Proposal. It's like the proposal that you eat your children to avoid starvation. and a famine. It's just as much of a taboo violation for some of the people that it's been visited upon. And so they were not happy to be receiving this, and they were not happy to see their children talked into it as they got into their reproductive years. They were not happy to see their friends and family buying into these ideas. Instead, they were horrified that this was spreading around their country. And so it's actually been considered to be a moral corruption inflicted instead of a rescue from problems they were having. Richard Bier gave us $5 and said something to look into is just what kind of mineral resources in demand happen to be prevalent in the areas where these sterilizations campaigns are being pushed. Unrelated, erectile dysfunction can be treated with diet and exercise. The hardest part is getting the wife to diet and exercise. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that is a good point. Are these organizations going in there and reducing the population growth of certain areas where mineral resources are in demand, and then paving the way for American businesses to go in and say, well, we'll harvest those for you and sell those for you for a fee. Right? We get a little off the top, 90%. Because that is definitely exploitation. And it would add that on top of... I mean, when you sterilize a group of people based on their national their national origin, that would be considered a genocide, right? When you go in and you say, we're gonna prevent this population from being able to reproduce and grow. We're gonna interfere with their natural progress. That's a quiet genocide, right? You're not actively rounding them up into camps. You're just keeping them from reproducing. So goes on. We ask that PEPFAR remain true to its original mission and respect our norms, traditions, and values. In other words, yeah, we don't want people to die from AIDS. We don't want you to start promoting abortion here. We ask that those partner organizations with whom the U.S. government partners to implement PEPFAR programs in ways that are cognizant and respectful of our beliefs and not cross over into promoting divisive ideas and practices that are not consistent with those of Africa. The African leaders wrote in a June 2023 letter to Congress. They want help preventing and treating HIV and AIDS. They don't want abortion. So it's not even that we are helping promote abortion. We're inflicting it on them against their will.
Kind of like circumcision, eh?
Yeah. Yep, exactly like circumcision, actually. We're inflicting things on these foreign countries at the expense of men that are abuses of the people of that nation. And in the case of circumcision, it disproportionately affects men. They're not doing it to girls. They're not promoting doing it to girls. They're promoting doing it to boys, right? And abortion also affects men. Men who want to be fathers and expect to be fathers are losing their children to this. So this article is from a couple of weeks ago. I identified it shortly before the last couple of episodes. And I'm still watching to see, what if further action has been taken on this initiative. But I'll keep you guys up to date if they pass this and when it's going to go into law and when it's going to go into effect and stuff, what the votes are. But yeah, this is insane that we're doing this, that we're being taxed for this, and it's illegal already. It's just not enforced. So what Republicans are basically doing is saying, we have this 1973 law that says you can't do this. This is being done against the will of the nations that it's being done in. It is interfering with our foreign relations. We're going to create a pathway for enforcement in order to stop these problems. And currently, this is still in debate. They have to debate this. We got to decide whether or not to enforce our own laws to our benefit and the benefit of our citizens that we're taxing to pay for things that we're doing illegally. And that is the article. Such that our wandering conversation had. Any thoughts? You awake, Lauren?
I'm awake, but I got disconnected for a second. No, I'm not sure how to articulate my thoughts because I was disconnected for a second. Lauren, are you awake? Oh, shit.
I think we knocked her out with the article.
It's a good thing I'm
movement.
here.
Yeah. I can hear movement, but yeah.
Even though I don't have any thoughts.
There we go. So we did.
Should we carry on?
Yeah, we did have a question. Isn't it? J.O. Balls asked, "Isn't it?"
Wait,
China?
have I been disconnected again?
No, you're not disconnected. You are not.
Oh shit!
Can you hear me?
On.
I think Mike can't hear me, but I can hear him. Let me type that into our chat.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good.
No, it's getting spotty. Is all.
Yeah, that's not good. Well, it's probably because the weather here has been a little weird. Normally, this time of year, we have a little bit of rain. Yeah, we get a lot of rain in April, but it's not usually this cold. And we've had like a lot of electrical storms and flooding because of the weird weather that we had this year. This is one of those years in the dueling cycles that happen. We have the sun temperature cycle where it creates more heat in this area and then less heat at other times, and it's like a 25-year cycle with a peak and a valley within that 25-year cycle that are like opposite to each other. And then there's, I think, the 9-year cycles for El Nino and La Nina that also affect our weather. And when those sync up in particular ways, you get years where the weather is particularly unusual. And I think this is one of those years. It's been one of those years. And I think sometimes that can have an effect. So, because our internet's been really weird this year. Like, we've had good service. This is one of the things, actually, that I spend
I'm
the
in
money
Scotland
on
right
from
now,
HBR Talk.
and over here,
Over there, the weather is apparently killing Mike's microphone. Crap.
Well, I'm currently in Scotland.
Yeah.
The weather is as cold as it normally is in Scotland, but only April sort of weather. And I don't know if you can hear anything I'm saying right now.
I can hear you. You got cut off there for a minute, though.
Yeah, that's apparently going to happen. Not just because I'm in Scotland, but because I'm in a utility room that's located some 15 meters from the router.
Yeah, that'll do it too. If you're far away from
normally isn't
the
a problem,
router,
but apparently it is. It is right now. But I have to be here so that my parents. Yeah, Scotland for the past 2.5 weeks, folks. In case you didn't know, that's why things have been a bit different. I have to do this from the utility room, so in these witching hours in which I do these things.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise you'd keep the whole house awake. Now, for me, it's not that bad.
I hope any of you heard anything I just said.
Yeah,
just
we
now.
heard you. We heard you. But,
Yes.
yeah, for me, it's not that bad. Usually I'm actually just a few feet away from the router, and I'm paying for the business level of both the wired internet and wireless, just because the laptop I use Wi-Fi instead of using a cord. Despite the advice I've had from everybody, I still haven't wired it. But and so we're paying for a larger service, basically, and it seems to have, for the most part, over the last 5 years, it seems to have been very beneficial. But occasionally we get interruptions because of the weather, and I'm fortunate, where there are service towers and stuff around here, because a lot of the same towers are serving base housing and stuff like that. Especially the cell phone towers and the power lines and stuff. We don't usually go down for very long. Where I am, we have really good service, but yeah, definitely have had quite a bit of benefit from that. But I have noticed that when we have had problems, like when I have problems, it's usually weather related, and it's usually like I'll hear about there having been some sort of solar event, or there's been some sort of an electrical event, and that seems to be the issue. So, in any case, I think we have pretty much covered the main thing that I wanted to get across here. Is we are starting to, because of the work that Doge has been doing, we are starting to see some accountability in terms of not only are fraudulent things being shut down, but also enforcement, at least proposals for enforcement of existing laws that are currently being violated by these NGOs. And I think that's a very important thing, simply because they have been for years. Like we noted in previous episodes, some of these have been in operation for 50 years. So for half a century, they've been taking your money and your parents' money, your family members' money, your friends' money, your boss's money, like a huge amount out of the American economy, really, and spending it on whatever they see fit, with very little accountability, very few questions asked. There have been some things come out recently, some highlights come out recently, where people have gotten funding for initiatives that didn't even exist. Oh, we're going to do this, and then they just keep the money. Right? Now, there was one I just shared a news story of last night, a woman who claimed she was going to be helping the children of soldiers do something called targeted learning or deliberate learning or willful learning or something like that, where the description is basically that they are doing sort of a self-guided, I'm learning this because I want to learn this, and I'm learning it on purpose, and it's my idea and my decision. And that the whole thing just didn't exist. She just took the money and kept it. There was no program, there were no employees, there were no children help, there was nothing. Just huge amount of money that she got, right? And so that accountability is really important, because even if it's stuff that we approve of spending money on, which I don't necessarily think the federal government should be involved in any of that, but even if we were like, yeah, this is a great program, we think that the federal government should be funding this, and we're gonna support that, it's not always true. It's not always real. quite frequently they're just scamming the shit out of people. So we have finished our super chats. We have finished our super chows. We don't have any Rumble rants. So with that, I will say thanks, guys, for going over this article with me and the long and wandering discussion around it. And thanks to everybody who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. Thanks, everybody, for listening to us, and good night, all.